Welcome to Helping Organisation Thrive. Today, I have the pleasure of Ingor van Rooi on the show. Good afternoon to you, Ingor.
Good afternoon to you. Nice to see you and good to be here with you, Julian.
Yeah, good to see you and connect with you. And I'm going to introduce you to the show. You're recognised as a connection catalyst, and you're all about purpose-driven community creator, which will be helpful for what we're going to talk about. So you help entrepreneurs, help them develop a social media strategy to stand out and connect with their ideal community. You're also a radio presenter on AfriCap Radio, and today we're going to be exploring community. You know what it is, how do we build it, why should we build a community, and talk a bit more about how we can do that on LinkedIn as well. But before we get into that conversation, Inga, I'd love to know what do you love about what you do?
My favorite thing about what I do is I get to help people and help them flourish and thrive. Um, and I do that in everything that I do.
And when did you realize that that was your thing, that you love to help people in that way?
Um, I think as far back as I can remember, I've always loved people. It's just something that was instilled within me growing up by my parents, and I see that to this day in them, and my brothers, and I think just my family as a whole, because I come from a very large family, not necessarily my nuclear family, but extended family is very large. So if you don't love people, you're in a bad place.
Now you do more than just love people and know a lot of people. You're known as a connection catalyst. You connect people and you build communities, you build tribes. And I just want to ask you, why do you think that's important? I mean, people talk about you need to build a community, but why is it important to build a community in the business world?
I can speak for myself and, of course, for my clients and friends. But what I want to say is it's very important to have a community, not necessarily as a business person, but as a person in general. It's very important to have community because no man is an island. We
Mm.
all need somebody to talk to, somebody to bounce ideas off of, somebody to learn from. And for me, I can say definitely the person that I am sitting here before you today, I would not be this person were it not for the people that have been part of my life. And I believe that, to in order to build, I think it's very important to build community because it helps you really elevate yourself to the nth degree. It helps you be the very best version of yourself because it exposes you to so many ideas, so many opportunities,
Mhm.
and of course, so many people.
Yeah, I think people don't realize that actually we do need others around us. And I say it's not just in a work context, but in a personal life, isn't it? We need that. I think
Yeah.
we're all destined to be in community in some context. And I know some people have bigger communities and people have smaller communities, but I
Yeah.
think we all need, whether that's just helpful best friends or advisors or good family, we need to be able to bounce off things because I think
Yeah.
we often forget that we only have one perspective from ourselves,
Yes.
and and it's so important to. And I know I work with a lot of teams that actually you can get so almost tunnel driven, or you don't see the blind spots until somebody else comes in and says, what about
Yes.
this, what about this, and actually there's some real benefits of that different perspective, isn't there?
Absolutely. And I'm gonna do this. I used to be the person that would show up in a Zoom meeting like this. That was who I was. And to a certain degree, that's still who I am. I still shy away from camera. Um, but
That surprises me, Inga. It really does surprise me.
Honestly, I really do. And it's just because I think as a human being, I am, and I know many other people are hypercritical of themselves. So if I'm looking at myself, I see, my hair is out of place, or, and we want to show up perfectly in front of
Mm,
others, right? We want to, there's a saying in South Africa, and specifically within my racial group, and it's in Afrikaans. It says "Hou die blink kant bo," which means only show the shiny side, and that goes back to when fabric is woven, the shiny side is the
mm,
good side, and if you look on the inside, that's where you see all the knots, all the different weaves, right? And it
mm,
doesn't look so good. So in our community, we have learned, and I think this is with everyone, um, that we only want to show the shiny side. That's why social media is so popular, because what social media does is it really gives you a window into somebody's life. It allows you to see the highlights,
mm,
right? But we don't realize that, yes, they are the highlights. We don't deny that. But there are also many things that are happening in the background that we are not privy to.
mm. That's interesting because it's before we even start building community, whether that's in a social media context or even in person context, we need to deal with ourselves first, don't we? Because as you say, you used to put your camera off, so we couldn't see you,
Yes.
which is so. How do we get into that place where we're willing to perhaps show a little bit of the knotty side of us, the not so shiny
Mm,
side? Because to me, that's where real relationships happen. Is when,
yes.
I'm not saying we should be completely, I say the word oversharing, but just gush out all the bad stuff.
Yes.
Perhaps a balance or a measured approach. But I think LinkedIn or any social media, not so much LinkedIn, I guess, in some ways, we just show all the say the highlights on how great everything is. I've got this new client I'm doing here, how great I am, and I do that as well, a lot of, but we don't share a lot of the perhaps not so good stuff. And
No.
is that an appropriate place to share it? How should we go about that, and how do we deal with our own mindset before we start building these communities?
Um, I think before we do anything, any showing up, um, the most important thing is your mindset. You need to recognize that everybody has value to share. And you need to recognize that a lot of the time, we as people, we're in our own way and we need to get out of our own way.
Hmm.
And that a lot of the time, that means actually stepping out of your comfort zone. I know that sounds very cliched, but um, we as people, we actually really gravitate towards comfort. Nobody likes being uncomfortable. But when you make up your mind that you're going to show up, it is a mindset shift that needs to happen. And you need to realize that, yes, you're going to be out of your comfort zone.
Hmm.
And yes, when you do try to step out of your comfort zone, we are confronted by fear. And that fear is a natural response, because what we're trying to do is keep ourselves safe.
Hmm.
And we need to recognize that, you know what, doing something outside of your comfort zone doesn't necessarily put you in harm's way.
Hmm.
So it's a mindset shift that needs to happen. You need to make up your mind that regardless of the fear that I feel,
Hmm.
I'm going to show up anyway, because there is a message that I can bring. There is value
Hmm.
that I can bring. And we need to recognize that there are many people that will actually relate to what you're having to say.
Hmm.
Um, I I don't know if you've watched my show, but my intro video starts with me saying, I hate videos. Now you may be wondering, if I hate videos, what the heck am I doing here? And that was the very first video that I ever posted on any social media. And it was my truth at the time. And it still, to a certain extent, is my truth. I still hate videos. But I recognize that if I allow myself to overcome that fear, that
Mm.
hatred of videos, of putting myself out there, I am able to impact others. And impact is something that's very important to me. I want to be able to help others. And so for me, impact comes over fear.
That's interesting because I was going to say that you do a lot of this in front of camera stuff, and I would assume that you're more introverted than extroverted because of that. And you went from having the blank screen to now showing the camera.
Yes.
How did you overcome that? Because I think often people's biggest, and it's not just a camera thing, but as you
Yes.
say, to grow, we have to put ourselves in an uncomfortable place, because when you're growing yourself, you're doing something that's slightly new to you, and you will feel slightly uncomfortable, and that's why the expression of being uncomfortable, it's where you grow.
Yeah.
But you have to put yourself in it, as you say. How did you overcome that fear that enabled you to do what you're doing now? Because you use the word hate. Hate's quite a strong word, that you hate
Yes.
video, and yes, you are here now in front of a video, you know, to whatever, how many people will watch this, and you do it every week anyway. How
Yes.
did you overcome that fear and that hate, to continue to do what you're doing?
Um, I think for anything that we do, we need to look at the why, because one day down the line, you're going to be faced with, are you sure you want to do this? And usually the why propels you forward. And for me, my biggest why are three girls, my daughters that I'm raising. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. But for me, those three girls, I'm raising them along with my husband, but they are also women in a space, right? And so I need to show them, I need to model behavior to them.
Mm,
And the reason why I was able to overcome my fear of showing up and my hatred for being on camera is I told myself that I need to show my girls that you can do something despite the fear that you feel.
mm.
And that's what pushes me and propels me forward every time.
That's fantastic. It really is. And
Yeah.
is this do you consciously, or I suppose initially, was it quite a conscious decision, or was it now more of an unconscious decision of being aware of that why that pushes you forward?
Um, it's a conscious decision every time I try something new,
Mm,
because I have a fear of failure, and it's something that's part of me. And I think many people have that fear, fear that, you know what, whatever's gonna happen if you fail, right? I don't. Sometimes I think to myself, what do we think about failure that we're so afraid to fail? Because it's almost as if we believe that if we fail, the world is going to implode. I don't know. Or I'm going to fall off a cliff. But
mm,
really, what it is and why it has developed within us is because we've gone through life and failed.
mm,
And so bad things have happened as a result of it. But the issue is we focus on those bad things. And if we are really truly honest with ourselves, we will realize that when we do fail, yes, bad things happen, but good things also happen.
mm.
and as a result of those failures, right? If you really are truly honest with yourself, you will
Mm,
know that. And it's really truly a matter of shifting your focus from
mm,
negativity to positivity.
mm. I mean, you must have. I'm not saying failure, but you must have had a number of failures along the way to what you're doing now. And
Yes.
I've often, because failure sounds devastating. It sounds
Yes.
horrendous, and no wonder we get this fear because we fail. It's just so negative, isn't it?
Yes.
I've often, and I do this with my clients, I've reframed it as in it's feedback. So which sounds very twee, but actually it's really helpful because if you're trying to innovate,
Yes.
in a space, things are not going to go as well as you expect because you're innovating. You're doing things that are groundbreaking, new, and therefore things will fail in that sense. But actually, just see it as feedback to actually learn for the next time. And I think
Yes.
that's the reframe, and it also emotionally takes the sting out of that thing called failure, which sounds really like a saber-toothed tiger is going to get you. That's how it feels like. So it's important to I
It's,
think that just reframe it, isn't it?
I have to say, it's very interesting that you mentioned a saber-toothed tiger, because this fear of failure is actually very primal. It comes from way, way, way back, right?
Mm,
And it's something that has just been carried along with humankind as we've grown, as we've developed, as the years have passed. Um, but yeah, that's pretty interesting that you said that.
yes, no, that's the reaction. It is that sort of fight or flight, our sort of brain that goes woo, and it's like that sort of fear, that's how it feels like, and that's why we don't do things. So once we get ourselves in a place where we've got a right mindset that actually we need a community, we think it's important to build a community,
Mm-hmm.
and we know there's an element of being uncomfortable because we're going slightly out of comfort zone potentially, depending on what we're
Yes.
doing. What are some of the practical ways of starting to build a community, whether that's online or in person? Doesn't really matter. What have you found in your own experience that has helped you build that strong community around you?
Well, when I teach and help others to build their community, I break it down to three easy steps. And those are connect. So when you connect with somebody, and then communicate and collaborate.
So three C's,
Yes.
nice and easy to remember. So connect,
Communicate,
communicate, and
collaborate.
collaborate.
Yes. And let me break it down a little bit further for you. So, um, connect is, of course, like when you're meeting somebody for the first time, and if it's on social media, you're sending them a connection request, especially on LinkedIn, right? Um, and I will always encourage people to be more personal. So if you're going to connect with somebody and send them a connection request, you need to personalize it. If you, for instance, if somebody sees me on this show today, um, they can send me a connection request and say, "Hello, Inga. I've seen you on Julian's show helping organizations thrive, and I'd love to connect." That way, it gives me context and helps me understand who you are and where you're coming from. And it
Mm,
also makes people more open to actually connect with you.
mm,
We've all received those connection requests where somebody just clicks connect and that's the end of that. No context. And um, a lot of the time, it's a perfect stranger that's sending you a connection request. And so some people actually refuse to connect in that way.
mm,
So I always say, personalize your message, send them a message and say, address them by their name, and then give them context
mm,
with regards to where you've seen them or where you've met them, so that you can actually connect with them. This allows that person to see who you are and connect with
Mm.
you, but also to start building a relationship, right? Um,
I think we've got lazy. I think with social media, haven't we? It's become a little bit, because you wouldn't just go up to somebody and just tap them on the shoulder and, oh, we're connected now. You'd engage with them, you'd talk with them, in an in-person context. And I think
yes,
we almost seem to act differently online. And I know there's certain practical ways of acting, but actually we've still got to realize that we're dealing with humans here. And
yes,
actually, I mean, I've sometimes connected to people where I've met them in person or stuff, or we're just connected straight away, and we haven't bothered with the message. But that's different. But I often use the message anyway, because it also gives me context to where I met them. So I often say, "Oh, great to see you at wherever today,
yes,
and let's connect." And so I've got a context immediately of know where I met them.
yes,
But it's almost treating people like humans, isn't it? Just interacting
yes.
with them and not just pressing a button and going, as you say, even if you've not met you physically, I've not met you physically, and
Oh,
we got introduced, but we connected that way. And I think that's, let's start thinking people as humans rather than just little digital assets on a screen, isn't it?
exactly, exactly. And then so once you've completed that connection request and you've connected with that person, now it's time to build the relationship. And how do you build relationship? The only way you can build relationship is to communicate. We can't have a relationship with someone if we don't speak to them. So communicate. And the way that you communicate, there are different ways too. The first one, of course, is to send them a message, an inbox message or a DM, right? And I would suggest that you don't send your whole history in your message. Because yes, people do that, and I've heard this phrase before, and I call it a pitch slap because now they're just pitching you in the DMs. So communicate with them. Just think about how it is you communicate with somebody that you meet for the first time in person. It starts with, how are you? Hello, how are you? That would be a good place to start.
Mm,
Um, then also, we want to continue that conversation in the DMs, but also look for that person's content and see how it is that you can add value to their content.
mm,
Another way to communicate with somebody is also when you share content to invite them to be
mm,
part of the conversation. And I'm not saying send them your post in a DM and say, please support my post. No.
mm,
Um, you know, create your post. And I found a good way to actually invite somebody to be part of the conversation is to maybe tag them in the comments and say, what do you think about? And you can
mm,
say something about the topic and then tag that person.
mm.
Um, some people may not respond because they don't appreciate being tagged, but others will. And the ones that are willing, you can move forward and build with them. Um,
Yeah, I think the engaging on their content or your content is a really, I find, a quite a nice, gentle approach of communicating. It's not
yes.
so, direct and in terms of a DM. There's nothing wrong with DM stuff, but I think it's a nice way of starting to build that sort of interest and in terms of by commenting on there. But I guess for me, just stepping back a little bit.
Hmm.
Do we? Because this is where I suppose a lot. We've all had those where we connect with something and suddenly we get spammed and all that sort of stuff, and we ignore all that, obviously, or massive long sort of text. When we're connecting with people, is our intent, and this is an interesting thing to think about, is our intent just to think, oh, I'm just going to get to know that person so they become a client, because this is LinkedIn is a business platform to connect with people, network, and make money?
Mm.
Or what's your intent when you're connected with people? Just curiosity. How should we think about that?
Um, Okay, so my intention is never to get somebody to sign up as a client. I I don't do that. Um, and I'll tell you why. Because it seems so insincere,
Mm.
and it basically makes me feel dirty. So I don't do it. Um,
So what
and
is your intent then when you're connecting and reaching out to people?
my intent is really genuinely to meet new people and get to know them.
Mm.
That's all that I'm looking for. And I know that that might seem like a fairy tale, but I love people, and I just I'll tell you something. I really love hearing people's stories.
Mm.
Since I was a young girl, I loved reading and getting to know characters in books and
Mm.
seeing the world through their eyes. And it's
Mm.
something that just it warms my heart.
Mm.
So for me, just connecting with somebody and talking to them and learning their story warms my heart. And I that's why I love doing it.
Yeah, I think intent really shapes what the language you use,
Yes.
our tone, our if we're in person, our body language. And I remember talking to a sales expert once, and he just said, have an intent to serve somebody, have an intent to help people, not to get a client, not to make
Yes.
money. And if you're there to try and help people, you may
Yes.
do that as just give them some advice, or actually they may actually, can you really help me? I want to pay for your services.
Yes.
But your intent is quite important, and I think that's the valuable
Yes.
thing, and that will steer you in how you go about it then, and what you say in your
Absolutely.
messaging, isn't it?
Absolutely. I will say that as a result of developing relationships with people, I
Mm,
have worked with people that I've met on LinkedIn.
mm,
Um, some of them have become my clients, but the main thing when you are um, building this community is
mm,
uh, the KLT, which is know, like, and trust.
mm,
You need to allow them to get to know you as a person, and then like you, and then trust you, because we as people, we buy from people, not businesses.
mm. We've got a question here which you want to read that. So network, this is from Chris Stanny. Networking is something I know I need to focus on, but the idea of sending someone a DM with the intention of fostering a mutually beneficial connection, quite terrifying. So what would be your advice to Chris on that one?
Chris, thank you for watching. I will say you need to shift your focus. Shifting your focus is so important because you need to don't look at it like this. Look at it as you are connecting with someone, you're getting to know that person, and looking to see if there's a way that you can help them. My approach is usually I want to get to know that person, see if there's a way that I can help them, or if there's somebody that I can actually introduce them to that will help to elevate them. If they mention that, for instance, I have two friends who are one is he was a foster father and to many kids, actually, I think about 50. And then I had another friend who spoke about being a foster parent, but also being a foster child. And so I intend to connect the two of them just because they have commonality
Mm,
and just to explore that relationship, that possible relationship, the connection that they have. So approach it more like, how can I help you? How can I help you? If I know of you needing XYZ and I know somebody offers XYZ, I will try to connect the two of you. But I will
mm.
obviously ask first, but that's what I'll do.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I think also I find what really helpful if you engage on their content a little bit, and then you can then say in a DM, "Oh, I really liked what you shared the other day on da, da, da," whatever it may be. You're
Yes,
then sort of almost looping back to what they've said, and you using something that they're sharing, and I think that starts to build that sort of relationship in a nice way and
Yes.
with the right intentions.
I
So
call that polite stalking.
polite stalking.
Yeah.
Yes. So we got connect, communicate, and then finally collaborate.
Well, which is part of the how can I help you? How can I collaborate with you? So, commenting on somebody's content is communicative, but it's also collaborative, right? Because you are helping them with the conversation that they're having through their content. You're showing that you are supportive of them, and that's what collaboration is about. But
Mm,
then also take it a little bit further, and once you've developed that relationship with someone, then you can explore how is it that you can collaborate. For instance, you've asked me to be on your show.
mm,
I will ask you to be on my show and
mm,
allow my community to get to know you and allow me to highlight you just because I want them to know you. And they should not ever be those ulterior motives
mm,
of I want to do this for you because you're going to do something for me. No,
mm,
we can't do that. It's not a transactional relationship. You're
mm,
just building relationship because you're building community. And when
mm,
somebody gets to know, like, and trust you because you've connected with them, because you've communicated with them, because you've collaborated with them, you don't know. Eventually it may not be that you buy from them or they buy from you. But guess what? If somebody says to me, "Oh, I'd like to be on a podcast with regards to organizations," well, I'm going to say, "Well, I know Julian and he does this, and I'll
mm.
introduce the two of you."
No, I think that's really important. I think that collaboration is it takes away. It's just how you can work with other people, and
Yeah.
sometimes you can collaborate and help other clients on a bigger scale, or it could be they know people, as you say, and but also through the process of collaboration, you learn stuff because
Yes.
you have people who've got skills that you haven't got, and they fill the gaps in, and I think that's also really helpful. And this goes
Yeah.
back, circling back to the very start of why community is really important. Building a community is to have a number of people you can use for your own sort of needs, but
Yeah.
also the needs of people
Yes.
but also you can help other people. And I think it's having that strength of community. So just before we finish, Inga, any sort of final thoughts on building a community?
Yes. We all talk about networking. It's a big buzzword. But when you build community, it's taking that networking to the nth degree. It's not just you being elevated or you being able to now pitch to 10 or 20 or 30 people. It's you building community with those people.
Mm,
And basically, you and they will be elevated.
mm,
Somebody, Michelle Janae, she wrote a book about networking. And one of the quotes that I love to use that she says is networking is not just connecting people with people, it's connecting people with ideas, people with opportunities, and people with people.
mm,
And that's what we want to do. We want to, when you build community, you want to have people in your sphere that you can see that they have characteristics that you can admire and then emulate. And they can also introduce you to different ways of looking at things,
mm.
different ways to solve problems. That is what community is all about. It's about us elevating one another.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Inga, for your insights on this, and I've loved and for sharing so personally as well. If people want to connect with you and engage with you, how's the best way to do that?
Thank you. And Julian, I just want to say thank you so much for hosting me on your show. It's been a privilege and an honor to be here and to be able to share some of my experience with you. And if anybody would like to connect with me, they can find me right here on LinkedIn. That's the best place. And I'm the only Ingor van Roy. So when you search for me, you'll find me. And if you like, you can always follow me on YouTube as well. I have a YouTube channel called Inspiration from Inga. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for your time today, Inga. Much appreciated.
My pleasure.